Hungarian Folk Tales. The bladder, the straw, and the hot coal. Once upon a time, far, far away, to the border and beyond, there lived a bladder. One day the fat bladder began to feel bored, snapped its string and said, "Oh, I think I will go out and see the big wide world." So it rolled and it rolled down the road, and as it rolled, it met a straw. "Straw, where are you going?" "I'm going to hide. I fell out of the stove when the wife was lighting the fire, and I thought I'd run away." "Then let's go together." And the two of them walked and rolled, and as they did so, they met a hot coal. "Hot coal, where are you going?" "I'm going to hide. I fell out of the stove when the wife was poking the fire, and I thought I'd run away." "So let's go together." "Let's go." So the three friends rolled and walked and talked together. And they journeyed on until they came to a stream. There the bladder jumped into the water and quickly swam to the other side. The straw also jumped quickly into the water and swam to the other side. Then the hot coal began to cry, "How shall I swim to the other side? If I jump into the water, I'll stop being hot. Take me to the other side." The fat bladder sat on the riverbank and laughed so much that it burst apart and killed all three. So that was the end of 1 and 2 and 3. And if you know more to this story, you can tell it to me. Hungarian Folk Tales. Starving Matthias. Once upon a time, very far away, there lived a very poor man. He was as poor as could be and had nothing to his name. His name was Starving Matthias, for he had nothing to eat. One day Matthias made up his mind to go into the forest and hang himself. He looked hard at all the trees to see which one would be best for the job. And as he was busy doing this, the devil appeared before him and asked, "What are you looking for, Matthias?" "I'm looking for incense to smoke you out of hell." This frightened the devil so much that he promised to give Matthias anything he wanted. "Then give me 200 pounds of gold." And so the devil gave him what he wanted. Matthias returned home very contented. The devil also went home and told the other devils what had happened. The other devils told him that 200 pounds of gold was far too much and thought how best to get it back. Then one of the devils had a very simple idea. "I shall simply go and ask him to give it back." So the devil went to him and said, "200 pounds of gold is really far too much, so I suggest the strongest between us should take it as a prize. I challenge you to a fight." "I won't fight you, devil. I'll simply throw you to the ground so that you'll never get up again. But my grandfather is 188 years old and lives deep in the forest. You should go and fight him instead." So the devil and Matthias went to the forest, where Matthias told the devil to enter a cave. So the devil went in, and what do you think he found? A bear. But the devil didn't know it was a bear. The bear was lying on the ground, and so the devil woke it up. The bear was far stronger, but the devil managed to slip from the bear's grip and hurry away home again. Then the devils gathered for a second time to discuss how best to get the 200 pounds of gold back from Starving Matthias. Next, the fastest devil went to see Matthias. "Matthias, the 200 pounds of gold is far too much, so let's see which one of us can run faster, and he shall have the gold. I won't compete against you, because if I start running, I'll be so fast that I'll knock down the walls of hell. But I have a son called John who will run fast against you. Come with me to the forest, because that is where John takes his midday nap." Matthias knew exactly in which bush the rabbit hid. "Wake up, John, wake up and take a race against the devil." The rabbit heard this, jumped to its feet and began to run as fast as the wind. The devil gave chase. But by the time the devil reached the forest, there was no sign of the rabbit. Who would have thought that your son could have run so fast? And with that, the devil walked back to hell. The devils gathered again to discuss the matter, and then the strongest of them said, "This time I shall go and bring back the gold." So he went to see Matthias and said to him, 200 pounds of gold is far too much. The one to win the gold will be the one of us who can carry the horse 6 times around the yard and rest no more than 3 times in total." This challenge worried poor Matthias, because he knew the horse was far too heavy for him. Then he had a thought and said to the devil, "You do it first, and then I will follow you." So the devil lifted the horse and carried it around the yard 6 times, but by the time he was done, the devil was absolutely exhausted. Then Matthias said to the devil, "The way you lifted the horse and carried it around was really no great deed, and you even stopped to rest. Now I shall take the horse between my legs and take it 9 times around the yard without stopping, even once." When Matthias dismounted, he spoke to the devil and said, "You see, I am much stronger than you are. Although I took the horse between my legs, I had no need to take a rest." Defeated, this devil went home again. Once back, the devils discussed how they would regain the gold. At last, a devil stepped forth saying that he would bring back the gold. So off he went to see Matthias. 200 pounds of gold is far too much, so the one of us who can scare the other more shall have the gold. We'll have you drink hot ink today. I'll drink it. What if we harness you to a yoke and have you plough smouldering embers in hell? I'll do it if I must. What if we put you in a steel pot and pour boiling lead on you? I'll bear it if I must. Now I'll scare you. The devil realised that the man was much braver, and so he rushed back to hell and told the others, "Beware of starving Matthias. Let him have the 200 pounds of gold rather than perish, because that Matthias is a bigger devil than all of us put together." But when he died, he was not let into heaven. Off you go to hell. That's where you belong. You were good friends with the devils down there. So off Matthias went to hell, but the devils would not let him in either. Then poor Matthias sat down outside heaven's door and sits there to this day. If you go to heaven, you are sure to see him still. Hungarian Folk Tales. The Prince Who Wanted to Live Forever. Once upon a time there was a prince. He told his father that he did not want to die. "You should know, son, that he who is born will also die." But the prince insisted that he did not want to die. "I'll go to Foreverland." "There's no such place, my son." "Yes, there is. I've heard of it." "Very well then, go." The prince prepared himself and wandered for many years until he came to a high mountain. He regarded the mountain and saw something at its very peak. It looked as small as a sparrow. Well, if he had come all this way, he simply had to find out what it was. It took him years to scale the mighty mountain. There he found a huge giant. He greeted the giant, and the giant returned his greeting. "What are you doing here, Prince?" "I'm looking for Foreverland. Could you tell me which way to go?" "Of course, you've arrived. Stay here with me because the Queen of Foreverland will send you here anyway." "I'd like to talk to the Queen myself. Please tell me which way to go from here." "There's a large forest over there. If you cross it, you'll find her." The prince went off to find the forest. There he came upon a magnificent palace. And there he found a kindly woman sewing in one of the rooms. "What are you looking for, Prince?" "The Queen, of course." "Well, don't go any further, because she will send you here anyway. Stay with me, and we can talk." "But I wish to talk to the Queen herself." "You cannot get in to see her, because you have to go through 3 iron gates, and each is guarded by 3 wild beasts. But if you don't want to stay here, I'll give you 3 bread buns. Should the animals attack you at the gates, give them a bun, and the iron gates will open." And so it all happened. When the 3rd iron gate opened up, the prince saw the Queen was standing in the middle of a courtyard. She asked the prince what had brought him to her palace. "I've come looking for you." "Then stay here with me." And the prince stayed. Time went by, and one day the prince said to the Queen, "Listen, I'd like to go home. I left my old parents behind, and I'd like to see how they are." The Queen laughed. "Being a prince has not made you any wiser. How many years do you think you've been here? 3 years? You've been here for 3,000 years, but I won't keep you from going if you really want to. I'll give you a pair of shoes. Take them with you. A man will attack you. Tell him you'll go with him and then put on these shoes." So the prince set off, and he wandered and wandered until he reached a town. But the town was no longer the same as it had been. He asked a few people if they knew the king by such and such a name. No, nobody knew him. He asked the oldest-looking man who was the oldest man in town. The man showed him the house where a 300-year-old man lived. The prince went to see him. "Do you remember my father, old man?" "Oh, my son, I've never even heard of him." As night fell, the prince found himself a room, made himself a bed out of hay, and went to sleep. In the morning, he woke up with a man standing right in front of him. "Hail, Prince! I've been looking for you for 3,000 years, and now I've found you. Come with me, because you ought to have died a long time ago." "Wait a minute, let me put on these shoes. Let's go out, and then I'll go with you." When the prince put on the shoes, they whizzed him away at once. Death rushed after him everywhere but failed to catch the prince. When the prince reached the walls of the Queen's palace, the Queen of Foreverland was standing there in the courtyard. She shouted to Death, "Don't you touch that man. I'll go out and take care of him. I'll throw him up high, and if he falls outside the walls, he'll be yours. But if he falls within the walls, he'll be mine." When the king threw the prince up high, Death danced and clapped, thinking that he was going to fall outside. But as it happened, he landed within the walls. The Queen then chased Death away, telling him never to return to her land again, otherwise he would surely die himself. So the prince stayed with the Queen, and they both lived happily ever after.